අර පිරිමැස්ම ගැන හිතන ඔබට විම් ලික්විඩ් වෙතින් රුපියල් 100ක ඉතිරියක්.
හරිම සුළුයි.
Tonight on First at 9, this Monday the 30th of January 2023. Relief. No power cuts today and tomorrow, assures CB, as Water Management Secretariat agrees to release adequate water reserves for power generation. Clean energy. Rooftop solar panels to be installed at over 11,000 locations across the country to address power demands, says Minister of Power and Energy Kanchana Vijayasekara. Politics. Freedom's People's Congress criticizes prorogation of Parliament.
This prorogation is therefore a futile and totally wasteful exercise.
And the opposition leader aims for a people-centric revolution.
ජනකේන්ද්‍රීය ජනතා මූලික විප්ලවයට සමගි ජන බලවේගයේ වරම ලබා දෙන්න.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9 with Andrew Bernard. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
A very good evening and welcome to AdaDerana 24's English News. In your top story for tonight, the Ceylon Electricity Board confirmed that no power cuts will take place today and tomorrow, as the Water Management Secretariat of the Mahaweli Authority has agreed to release adequate reserves of water for water generation and power generation. The Mahaweli Authority is expected to hold discussions again on the 1st of February to decide on the levels of water supply for power generation until the conclusion of the advanced level examinations on the 17th of February.
In a letter to the Director General of Mahaweli Authority yesterday, the Public Utilities Commission noted they have observed that hydro reservoirs are at a capacity to generate 778 gigawatt-hours of electrical energy, which is 100 gigawatt-hours higher than the reservoir's capacity in the same period for the year 2022. With the PUSL instructing the Ceylon Electricity Board to provide uninterrupted power supply until the 17th of February, the Power and Electricity Regulator requested the Mahaweli Authority to release at least an additional level of 2 gigawatt-hours per day than the allocated water dispatch until the 17th of February for power generation, taking into account candidates sitting for the advanced level examination. Responding to this letter, the Water Management Secretariat at the Mahaweli Authority agreed today to release adequate water reserves from the reservoirs for power generation. Following this development, Ceylon Electricity Board Chairman Nalindi Lanka said no power cuts will take place today and tomorrow. According to PUSL, the management of the Mahaweli Authority is expected to hold discussions again on the 1st of February to decide on the levels of water supply for power generation until the 17th of February.
Now, rooftop solar panels are to be installed at over 11,000 locations across the country. Minister of Power and Energy Kanchana Vijayasekara said that over 800 sites have already been surveyed for this purpose. The funding for the project will be obtained from the $100 million credit line extended by India to support Sri Lanka's push towards more renewable energy usage.
In June 2021, India extended a $100 million line of credit to Sri Lanka to help the island nation finance projects in the solar energy sector and also to expedite the process of fulfilling 70% of the country's power generation via renewable energy sources by 2030. This agreement signed between the Sri Lankan government and the Export-Import Bank of India was exchanged by the High Commissioner of India to Sri Lanka, Gopal Bagle, and Secretary to the Treasury, S.R. Artigala, in the presence of former President Gotabaya Rajapaksa. Last year, Minister of Power and Energy Kanchana Vijayasekara said the ministry will use the $100 million Indian credit facility to fix rooftop solar panels at government institutes and religious places. In its latest development, the subject minister tweeted that the solar panel system will be installed in 11,219 project locations that will include 374 national schools, 25 state universities, 20 national colleges of education, 8 teacher training colleges, 20 technical colleges functioning under the Vocational Training Authority and National Apprentice and Industrial Training Authority. 25 district secretariats, 331 divisional secretariats, 79 education centres of information technology and other distance learning hubs, 220 triforces and police buildings, 824 pirivenas, 9,176 other religious institutes and other key government buildings will also be included in the rooftop solar project. The minister said 827 sites have already been surveyed. Vijay Sekhar also went on to say that a separate program is implemented by the respective provincial councils and the Ministry of Health to include all other provincial schools and hospitals in a rooftop solar program.
Now, the chairman of the Election Commission, Nimal Punchayeva, said today that neither the chairman of the Election Commission nor any of its members have to sign the Gazette notification to commence the local government election process. He made this statement in response to a special media release issued yesterday by the Director General of the Government Information Department.
Yesterday, the Director General of Government Information released a statement noting that the Gazette notification to commence the local government election process with the signatures of the chairman and other members of the Election Commission has still not been sent to the government printer for publication. However, the Election Commission says that all the documents pertaining to the Gazette declaring the 9th of March as the date of election have been sent to the Department of Government Printing after the documents were handed over to the Election Commission by the district returning officers. Meanwhile, speaking to the media today, the chairman of the Election Commission said that it is not the responsibility of the Election Commission to sign such a gazette.
රජයේ ප්‍රවෘත්ති අධ්‍යක්ෂක ජෙනරාල්වරයා වගේ වගකීම් සහිත නිලයක් දරන කෙනෙකුගේ වගකීම් විරහිත ප්‍රකාශය ගැන කොමිසම සභාව කනගාටුවට පත් වෙනවා. ගැසට් පත්‍රය නිකුත් කිරීම ඒ තේරීම් බාර නිලධාරීන්ගේ වගකීමක්. ඒක මැතිවරණ කොමිසමේ සභාපතිව සමාජික අත්සන් කරන්න ඕනේ නැහැ. ඒ අය තමයි අත්සන් කරන්නේ. සියලුම අපේක්ෂකගේ නම් ඔවුන් තරම් කරන කොට්ටාස ඒ තියෙන සලකුණු මේ ඔක්කොමත් එක හරි ගැස්සලා තමයි ගැසට් කරන්නේ. මේක තමයි ඉතිහාසයේ ඉඳලා පළාත් පාලන මැතිවරණ එන ක්‍රියාවලිය. ඉතින් රජයේ ප්‍රවෘත්ති අධ්‍යක්ෂ ජෙනරාල්ගේ අඩු වශයෙන් මේ කියන ක්‍රියාදාමය නොදැන සිටීම හරිම කනගාටුවට කාරණයක්.
ඒක තමයි තාමත් ජනතාව අතර පොඩි සැකයක් තියෙනවා. එළඹ 9 වෙනිදා ඡන්දේ තියයිද කියලා ස්ථිර වශයෙන්. මම ජ්‍යොතිර්වේදියෙක් නෙවෙයිනේ. නිසා මට කියන්න පුළුවන් කොමිෂන් සභාව නියම කරලා දිනේට ඡන්දේ පැවැත්වීම අවශ්‍ය සියලු කටයුතු සිදු කරමින් යනවා.
The State Minister of Investment Promotion, Dilu Mamadugama, says that the government can postpone the local government election if needed, but added that postponing the election is not an appropriate move. Meanwhile, opposition leader Sajid Premadasa called on the public to provide them with a mandate for a people-centric revolution in the country.
අද මිත්‍රවරුනි රටටම ඉල්ලන්නේ විසඳුමක්. මොකක්ද විසඳුම? එක සරල දෙයයි තියෙන්නේ. අපේ බංකොලොත් රටට අවශ්‍යයි මුදල්. මොන කණ්ඩායමටද සල්ලි රට වෙනුවෙන් ලබා ගන්න පුළුවන්. රටක් හැටියට එක්සිත්ව එක්සත්ව මේ රටේ මහ පොළොවේ ක්‍රියාත්මක වෙන ජන කේන්ද්‍රීය ජනතා මූලික විප්ලවයට සමගි ජන බලවේගයේ වරම ලබා දෙන්න.
අපේ පක්ෂ ඉතිහාසයේ වෙලා තියෙන දේවල් ගත්තොත් අපි මේ දේශපාලන අත්තරින්න ගොඩක් කල් අපි කොච්චර කියද්දි ජනතාව අපිව 103ට අඩු කරපු විගයක් තිබුණා. ඒත් අපිට ධෛර්යයක් සහ විශ්වාසයක් තිබුණා. නැවත ජනතාවට මේ පණිවිඩය ගෙන යනවා. එවැනි දේශපාලන ව්‍යාපාරයකට විතරයි පුළුවන්කම තිබෙන්නේ බිඳ වැටුණු රට ගොඩනගන්න.
2016 පවත්වන්න තිබිච්ච පළාත් පාලන ඡන්ද විමසීම 2018 වෙනකල් කල් දැම්මේ සජිත් ප්‍රේමදාස මහත්තයත් ඔය අනුර කුමාර දිසානායක මහත්මයාත් පාලනේ සම්බන්ධ වෙච්ච පහුගිය යහපාලන ආණ්ඩුව. ඒ වගේම පළාත් සභා මැතිවරණය නැත්තට නැති කළා දාලා අහෝසි කළා දැම්මේ ওই අනුර කුමාර දිසානායක මහත්තයලා සජිත් ප්‍රේමදාස මහත්මයාලා අත උස්සලා කියන එක ඒගොල්ලන්ට දැන් අමතක වෙලා තියෙනවා.
රජයට අවශ්‍ය නම් මැතිවරණේ කල් දාන්න යම් තීන්දුවක් ගන්නත් පුළුවන්. ඒකත් සුදුසුද කියන එක මම දන්නේ නැහැ. මොකද මැතිවරණ කල් දැමීමත් ඒ තරම් සුදුසු දෙයක් නෙමෙයි.
Now, independent parliamentarian and member of Freedom People's Congress, Professor G.L. Pires, criticizes President Ranil Wickremesinghe's decision to prorogue the parliament, stating that it is futile and a wasteful exercise at a time when the country is faced with a severe economic crisis. Speaking at a media briefing this morning, Professor Pires said they suspect that the government is planning to remove opposition parliamentarians who are heading the Committee on Public Accounts and Public Finance during the process of reconstitution of committees following the prorogation of Parliament.
We are very strongly critical of the decision regarding the prorogation of Parliament. It is wasteful, unnecessary and detrimental in the present circumstances. I have sat in Parliament for a very long time. I cannot recall any other instance where within 7 months Parliament has been prorogued twice. If that is to be done, there must be a good reason for it. On the contrary, there are severe disadvantages, burdens that are heaped upon the people. As a result of this prorogation, 40 committees of Parliament cease to function. It then becomes necessary to reconstitute all these committees. In other words, you have to start from the beginning. You have to start on a clean slate. This means enormous expenditure and a colossal and totally unjustifiable use of time and money. Now, faced with the myriad of very challenging issues which the Parliament of Sri Lanka is called upon to deal with at this moment, this prorogation is therefore a futile and totally wasteful exercise. Among the committees of Parliament, the most vital committees performing functions that have direct relevance to the well-being of our people are the committees handling topics connected with public finance. There are 3 such committees. The Committee on Public Accounts, Committee on Public Enterprises, and the Public Finance Committee. Out of these 3 committees, 2 are at present headed by opposition. We have good reason to suspect that the intention of the government is to remove these 2 members of the opposition and to replace them with government members. These 2 members of the opposition have become a thorn in the side of the government, a constant source of irritation. The government wants to remove them using their majority in Parliament, and the purpose underlying this entire exercise is to prevent initiatives that are now underway to probe fraudulent transactions, bribery, corruption, other irregularities. In a situation where the government is constantly complaining of a lack of resources, these resources that are being siphoned away, those matters are being investigated by these committees. Indeed, that is the allotted function of these committees.
Now, State Minister of Finance Ranjit Siambalapitiya reiterated that Sri Lanka has no other option apart from a program with the IMF to address its current economic woes. Addressing a media briefing earlier today, the State Minister said that without an IMF agreement, the country would once again face the dire situation experienced during the months of last year.
Speaking at a media briefing at the Department of Government Information, State Minister of Finance Ranjit Siambalapitiya elaborated on why the tax increases were necessary given the current economic situation of the country.
රටේ බදු ආදායම් බිලියන 1800යි පාඩු ලබන ආයතනවල අලාභය බිලියන 950යි. භාගයක් අපිට යොදන්න වෙලා තියෙන්නේ පාඩු ලබන ආයතන නඩත්තු කරන්න. කනිටෙල් නීතිගත සංස්ථාව බිලියන 619ක් අලාභයි. ශ්‍රී ලංකා ගුවන් සේවය බිලියන 129යි. ලංකා විදුලි බල මණ්ඩල 151යි. ප්‍රතිහෝගතකරණය කියන කාරණාව අවශ්‍යද නැද්ද කියන එක ඉතාම පැහැදිලි. අපිට ණයගත නොහැකි නම් මේ වෙලාවේ. මුදල් මුද්‍රණය කිරීම අපි ප්‍රතිපත්තියක් හැටියට ඉනදා අවශ්‍යතාවලට යොදන්නේ නැතිනම් කුමක්ද විකල්පය? දැන් මගෙන් සමහර අය යනවා මේ 225ටත් මේක ගහනවාද කියලා. ඔව් 225ටත් ගහනවා. ඒ සියලු දෙනාගේ සියලු දීමනාවලට මේක එකතු වෙනවා. එතනින් එහාට කොහොමද විසඳුමක් හොයන්නේ කියන ප්‍රශ්නේදී අපිට ජාත්‍යන්තර මූල්‍ය අරමුදල තමයි ඒ සඳහා තිබුණු එකම මාර්ගය. ඒ රටවල් අපිට ඒ සහනය දෙන්න නම් ඉතින් මේ හැම රජයක්ම බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා එවැනි කැපකිරීමක් විදේශ රටක ඉන්න අපි වෙනුවෙන් දරද්දී ඔවුන්ගේ ජනතාවගේ බදු මුදලෙන් අපිත් යම් ආකාරයක වගකීමක් කැපවීමක් මේකෙන් කරાવી කියලා. අපි මේකට කිසිදු සූදානමක් නැතුව මේ අපේ මුළු බර දරන්න උන් සූදානම් වෙන්නේ නැහැ. මේ අපි මුහුණ දීලා තියෙන ප්‍රශ්නය ජාත්‍යන්තර මූල්‍ය අරමුදලේ සහයෝගය නැතුව විසඳා ගන්න ක්‍රමයක් තිබේද? ඒ වගේම මේ IMF එකත් එක්ක අපි ඇති කරගන්න උත්සාහ කරන එකඟතාවය ඇති කර නොගත්තොත් අපි මුහුණ දෙන තත්ත්වය කුමක්ද? 2022 ජූනි ජූලි අගෝස්තු රටේ ජනතාවින්ද අපහසුතාවය මීට එහා ගිය තත්ත්වයකට තමයි අපිට නැවත මුහුණ දෙන්න වෙන්නේ.
Welcome back. Now in your business news, the central bank was able to raise 67 billion rupees in an auction of 2025 and 2027 bonds after calling bids for 70 billion through the 2-year yields spiked. The central bank was successful in selling 55 billion rupees of 1st of May 2027 bonds at a weighted average yield of 29.11%, close to the market. Furthermore, 12.9 billion rupees as of 1st of July 2025 bonds at 32.19% higher the market after offering 1.5 billion rupees in securities. The spike in the shorter end security has created some surprise in the market. High demand was observed for 2027 securities, which may have reduced due to the higher than market average of 2025 rate. Now the SPI closed in red at 8,897, down at 9.7% as a result of the price losses in counters such as Expo Lanka Holdings, Valuable One and Sampath Bank, with the turnover crossing 1.6 billion rupees. A similar behavior was witnessed in the S&P SL20 as it closed at 2,782.25, down by 1.16% from the last close. High net worth and institutional investor participation was noted in John Hill's Holding and Asia Siaka Commodities. Mixed interest meanwhile was observed in Expo Lanka Holdings, Lanka IOC and SoftLogic Life Insurance, whilst retail interest was noted in LOLC Finance, Brown's Investment and SoftLogic Capital. Foreign participation in market activity remained at subdued levels, with foreigners closing as net buyers. Diversified financials in the meantime sector was the top contributor to market turnover as the sector index lost 1%. The share price of Asia Siaka Commodities recorded a gain of 12.2% to close at ₹4.60. Capital Goods meanwhile was the second highest contributor to the market turnover as the sector index decreased by 0.5%. Now let's take a look at how the Sri Lankan rupee fared against other major currencies during the day. Now oil prices fell today, giving up earlier gains as global productions will likely keep output unchanged during a meeting this week, and investors are cautious ahead of a US Federal Reserve meeting that may spur market volatility. Meanwhile, rising tensions in the Middle East subsequent to a drone attack in Iran impacted the market earlier today.
Brent crude futures fell 0.8% to $85.92 a barrel by 7:10 a.m. GMT, while US West Texas Intermediate crude was at $79.07 a barrel, down 0.8%. Ahead of the Federal Reserve's policy meeting scheduled on the 31st of January to the 1st of February, the market broadly expects the US Central Bank to raise interest rates by at least 25 basis points, increasing concerns that the Fed's extended increases in borrowing costs will choke fuel demand growth in the world's biggest oil consumer. Ministers from the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries and allies, including Russia, known collectively as OPEC+, are unlikely to tweak their current oil output policy when they virtually meet on the 1st of February. Still, an indication of a rise in crude exports from Russia's Baltic ports in early February caused Brent and WTI to post their first weekly loss in the last 3 weeks. However, oil prices rose earlier today amid tensions in the Middle East following a drone attack in oil producer Iran. While it is not clear yet what's happening in Iran, experts hold that any escalation there has the potential to disrupt crude flow. China, the world's biggest crude importer, pledged over the weekend to promote consumption recovery, which would support fuel demand after it ended strict COVID-19 curbs in December.
Now, Asian shares traded cautiously today ahead of a week that is certain to see interest rates rise in Europe and the United States, along with the US jobs and wage data that may influence how major further they still have to go. Investors expect a 25 basis point hike by the Federal Reserve following a half-point hike by the Bank of England and the European Central Bank.
Asian shares have been up following China's swift reopening, improving the economic outlook, with MSCI's broadest index of Asia-Pacific shares outside Japan up 11% in January, so far at a 9-month high. MSCI's broadest index of Asia-Pacific shares outside Japan was off 0.2% today, with markets mixed across the region. Japan's Nikkei went flat while Taiwan's markets jumped 3.1%. Chinese blue chips climbed 1.1% after returning from the holidays. Beijing reported Lunar New Year travel trips inside China surged 74% from last year, though this was still only half of pre-pandemic levels. S&P 500 futures and Nasdaq futures both eased 0.3%, while Eurostoxx 50 futures and FTSE futures dipped 0.2%. Investors are confident that the Federal Reserve will raise rates by 25 basis points on Wednesday, followed the day after by half-point hikes from the Bank of England and European Central Bank, and any deviation from that script could be a real shock. Just as important will be guidance on the future policy, with analysts expecting a hawkish message. With US labour market still tight, core inflation elevated and financial conditions easing, Fed Chair Powell's tone will be hawkish. Investors will also look for the Fed to continue the push back against market pricing of rate cuts later this year.
The Sports Minister Roshan Ranasinghe says that new regulations will be introduced soon for appointing members to selection committees for all sports, including cricket. The minister said the new regulations will facilitate the appointment of the selection committees with accountability and transparency.
The National Sports Council convened in Colombo this morning under the patronage of Minister of Sports Roshan Ranasinghe.
පසුගිය දිනවල තුමලගේ උපදෙස් සමග අපි රෙගුලාසි කීපයක් මේ රටේ ක්‍රීඩාවේ අභිවෘද්ධිය වෙනුවෙන් නිකුත් කරනු ලැබුවා. එහි සාර්ථකත්වය පිළිබඳව එක පැත්තකින් සාකච්ඡා කළා. දෙවැනි කාරණය එක් එක් ක්‍රීඩාවට අදාළව ක්‍රීඩාවේ ජාතික තේරීම් කමිටු පත් කරන විනිවිදභාවයෙන් ඒ කමිටු පත් කරන ක්‍රමවේදය සම්බන්ධයෙන් සාකච්ඡා කළා.
ලංකාවේ ඉන්න හොඳම තේරීම් කමිටු වලට එන්න පුළුවන් පුද්ගලයන්ට අවස්ථාවක් ලබා දිය යුතුයි කියන එක තමයි අපි කිව්වේ. ක්‍රිකට් ගහලා හොඳට ක්‍රිකට් කරපු අය ඒගොල්ලොන්ව අපි මේ ක්‍රිකට් වලට සම්බන්ධ වෙන්නේ නැත්නම් කවදාවත් මේ ක්‍රිකට් ප්‍රශ්නේ निराකරණය කරන්න හම්බෙන්නේ නැහැ.
ජයග්‍රහණයට ඉස්සෙල්ලා විනය කියන එක හදන්න ඕන අපේ ක්‍රීඩාවේ. දූෂණය නවත්තන්න ඕන. ඒතකොට ජයග්‍රහණය ඉබේම එයි.
And that's all the news we have for this evening. Join us again tomorrow for the very latest news at the very same time. And pleasant evening and good night.
For news and information you can trust 24 hours a day, visit AdaDerana.lk.